the time that you're planning ahead, and looking at different Airbnb or hotel options that you're interested in. And then, for example, knowing the currency change, what better option is it to change money here or change money over there? Being cautious about all these little things so that you can actually enjoy your trip. Because if you don't take care of these little things when you're on your trip, you're figuring all of these things out as you go. So planning ahead is a really good thing.
And one thing that when I went to Mexico, initially when I landed, and something I was kind of worrying about was like how am I going to pay for things there? So luckily, I went to go visit Mexico City. And at Mexico City, they have most of the restaurants around there have you can just pay with your card. And what I found out is with my bank, I don't even have to call them to let them know, hey,
really?
Yeah, I don't have to call them and let them know, hey, I'm traveling. Don't freeze any of my funds if you see a transaction from somewhere else. They, well, apparently for Mexico, if I'm traveling to Mexico, I don't have to notify them that I'm going to be, paying at there. So it was really smooth. I actually got to use my card a couple times and pay, and it, the value in the currency exchange would go through, and I'd just be paid. I'd be able to pay with my U.S. money, which is pretty cool. But I also did have some. So I pretty much had it in a way where I wasn't trying to spend all of my cash money unless I really needed to, because I was I didn't want to go to a bank there to exchange the money because it gets really complicated. Because when I arrived at the airport in Mexico, and I don't know if when you've traveled to Guatemala, if at the airport in Guatemala, there's banks there that can exchange your money, your U.S. money for quetzales over in Guatemala, and they have ones for pesos in the airport. But my cousins were telling me that it's really bad exchange rates. You usually don't get as much money as you should if you go through those. So. Definitely. I think also on my bank, you can request money in advance. Oh, hey, I'm going to be traveling here. Can you give me cash in whatever currency they have available? And you just order it through them.
Yeah, I recently went to a bank that wasn't mine, but there was a person ahead of me, and they asked, hey, I think they were saying I'm going to Colombia and I need some money. And he ordered it there, and I was a bit confused by what they were doing. But then I did a little bit of research, and exactly what you were saying, that you're depending on the bank, but they will offer some type of things like that, which is good to know. And again, this is why I say planning ahead to know these small little details, because often people don't know that when you go to the airport, it's better to change money out, not in those little cubicles where they have their exchanging money, because like you said, the rates are not the best. Every time I travel in Guatemala, I do it somewhere else. And I also, if you know people, they'll know you they will know which are the best rates. So traveling back home for me is, I know my family knows where to go for better rates. But yeah, in Mexico, when we went to Mexico with my brothers, we didn't do it there either. We kind of went to different places to find out, oh, this is better rate and stuff like that. But I feel like in Mexico, we were able to pay with our cards.
Yeah, most of the time, like I said, most of the time I was able to get away with just paying with my card.
Yeah, I mean, in Guatemala, in my smaller towns that I've seen, you can't really
get away with
card.
that.
Yeah, you got to use cash, but it's not dollar cash. So yeah.
Yeah, especially for me, I don't really like going to all the fancy restaurants, especially in Mexico. I like a lot of street food, and a lot of street food is usually not card. So that's where I use that's where I use most of my currency. And then also in Mexico, what I find is that they in certain parts they tax if you use card, so which is weird in my opinion, but usually just whatever price they have set in Mexico, 70 pesos for this item, it's gonna cost 70 pesos. There's no hidden fees or anything unless you use card. Sometimes they can be a little bit more oh, well, we're gonna charge you this much because you're using card. So that's currency. The other aspect I want to touch on is packing packing for your trip. So so you got your money, you got your trip already figured out. You have your hotel, you found a hotel or some place to stay. Now you need to pack everything together. So that's where I also had my first kind of like, dang, well, how much should I bring, right? So there's different like suitcase sizes. I actually travel with a pretty big suitcase size. I forget what, it's like the maximum size you can basically take as a suitcase. And honestly, when I was packing everything up, I was like, I don't really need this big of a suitcase because I'm only going to be there for 2 weeks. And yes, 2 weeks sounds like a long time, but I had the advantage also that since I was staying with family, I can just laundry there, right? So I can take like less clothes because of that and have more space for things that I want to buy over there and bring over. Because you need to take into account that, like, yeah, you'll have this, but then you'll have this amount of space. But then what if you buy stuff over there? Then how are you going to get all that stuff back, right? And then I was also really worried about going through like security and then like, I don't know, for some reason, them stopping me like for having too much of a liquid or something, like my perfume or like my deodorant or any of that stuff. So I usually there's usually like TSA compliant is what they call it. There's like a whole section in Target that I found that just has like small things for you for travel, like travel size items. And I mean, I didn't really have any issues going through TSA or having my bags checked, any of that. It was a pretty smooth experience. But yeah, did you want to add to that, Santi?
Yeah, so one of the things before I would do the packing and things is I started doing this a couple of years ago, and it's one of my favorite things, and it's whether you have Google Maps or Maps, there's this thing where you can pinpoint locations and save those addresses, but you can create little folders in those maps. And so what I do, and I love doing this, is going to TikTok, going to Instagram, going to Google, like doing my research on places to visit, but not just the most popular places to go to. I read a lot of blog articles, and it might sound boring, but I'm looking at places I want to go experience some different things. And then I find them on maps and I pinpoint them and I name whatever trip. For example, I went to Hawaii recently. I named it Hawaii, and there was different types of islands. There's the Big Island, there's the, Honolulu. And I was going in 2 islands, but I did one for the Big Island, and I put places I wanted to go see, some restaurants that I saw, and just kind of exploring. So I made that folder, and I have it for record now. Even I can even share it with people, but I don't know if I would. It's in my secret places. I'm kidding.
Oh, okay. I mean, all right.
I'm kidding. But the reason why I mentioned that before packing is once I have an idea of like the activities that I'm interested in, that's how I pack. So for example, if there's activities of water, I'm like, okay, I need to take swimsuit. Right. I need to take this. Or
taking into account the weather, right?
The weather. Yeah. And then if I'm like, oh, there's a lot of hiking trails in Hawaii, that was one thing. There's a lot of hiking trails. And I was like, okay, I want to go explore that. So I made sure I packed my hiking boots instead of buying something that I'm missing. And then that's how I normally set my packing thing. I am a little bit of an overpacker, and I feel like it might be wrong, but I feel like there's a difference between female and male, because I feel like a male, their clothes is not that much.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Female, reality, you gotta keep a lot of other things in track. And for women too, for example, on my trips, I try not to go on trips during my monthly cycle because it can get in the way. Especially if you're like going to, Hawaii and Europe and swimming and stuff. And, so I definitely keep account, like, okay, I'm estimating the time, like this would be the time, or usually I'm like, I'll go in the beginning of my monthly so that when I'm past over it, I'm having fun, or I plan for that stuff too. So definitely keep those emotions or things in mind, because then when you're on your trip, like I said, you'll actually enjoy it rather than pinpointing a lot of things as you're going, which is what we often do. We just buy a plane ticket, and then I'm gonna stay here at the hotel, and I'm gonna rent a car, and that's it, and it's whatever. It's good too, but as long as you have all these little tiny essential things that you're taking care of, so then you have a guide when you get there. You don't have to go to these places. I don't go to all of them. There are places I do go. There are things I'm like, oh wait, this sounds more interesting, but I just have a guide that helps me. So that's one of my biggest tips, is using Google and Apple Maps to pinpoint places that you want to go visit.
And you can't always prepare for whatever weather that's going to end up happening. Like I think there's always going to be a part in the trip where it's like you weren't prepared for that. But that's just part of the experience, you know?
Absolutely.
And for me, what happened in Mexico was, it was like the second to last day I was going to leave. And then my cousin was like, hey, let's go on this like 5-mile hike. And I'm like, you know, I did not bring any clothes to go for a 5-mile hike, but I just had to improvise. I literally went on that hike with like pajama pants and like, he let me borrow his like size 11, size 12 shoes that didn't fit me because I wasn't a size 11 or 12. So they were like huge on my feet. And I just remember I was like, it was still a really good time though. Cause it like, I don't know, for me, especially for a hike that long, he took me through, it was a really cool experience. Like, even though I came unprepared, I didn't let that stop me from still having like that experience or wanting to experience that, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And if I really, really wanted to, yes, I could have bought like some sweatpants or something while I was there. But I was like, you know what? I think I'll be fine with what I got. And it ended up working out.
Yeah,
so.
and on trips, keeping account also those things, and we'll kind of get into financials later, but knowing that there will be times where you're missing something and you have to buy it.
Yeah.
So I love how you mentioned all of those things too, that sometimes it's whatever. I got what I got. The other thing that we can transition is kind of preparing for the airport, which kind of goes with my like what I pack.
Yeah.
And for me, it's I always like to wear easy shoes that can come off. So my go-to shoes,
like dressing comfortably in general.
Comfortably, and also I like Vans, but the Vans that are like slip-on Vans, you know, they're
like the ones that don't have laces.
Yeah, because when I'm like, the least favorite thing that I have is when we go through that line and check in, and yes, there's the other option where you can pay more and just, you know, it's a lot quicker.
Skip the whole thing. Yeah.
But at times, I mean, sometimes the line is not that bad, but I don't like to be in, you know, so I wear shoes that are easy to come off. And then I carry a book. I carry warm clothes, because I've noticed that even if it's hot in the airport, like in the plane, it gets really cold.
It does get cold. You're right.
Yeah. So I always keep that in account. And also a tip that I've learned over the years is, let's say you are a person who really likes to arrive and feel like more dressed up. When I leave from the airport, and for me, I always like to travel during the night because I can sleep better. Not the best, but better. And so I always have a backpack, and in my backpack I carry the essentials: my computer, my passport, like a little pouch with has a toothbrush, hand cream, sanitizer, headphones. Like, those are the essential things. But I always carry an extra pair of jeans. And so for me, I prepare the top part to be a little bit kind of comfortable, but comfortable in a way where if I put on a pair of jeans, it looks okay.
Yeah.
And I carry that, and so I can, when I arrive and I know that, oh, okay, I don't want to be in my sweatpants, I'll take it off and change in the bathroom, and then I'm okay. So I always carry a pair of jeans in my backpack.
Yeah, that. I agree with you. When I was traveling, like first of all, the airport, like I was kind of scared of it at first. I was like, I was by myself, and I was worried that, you know, something would go wrong when I go and check in my bag, because that's usually the first thing you do when you go to the airport is you check in your bag, and then you go through the security, and then you wait for your flight. And I just had like kind of like a bit of anxiety going into it, because I had never really, I don't recall like when I did it before, but it was, again, like I had someone there to help me out, but it was like my first time just being thrown in and doing it myself. And it was a good experience. Like for me, usually the check-in line, I went in early. I went in like
2 hours before.
Be at least 2 hours, or yeah, 2 hours before is a good estimate time to be there. Because yeah, you do not want to be there when it's like close to the send time, because oh man, that can put you in a really bad position.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, so for me, when I was at the airport, both, it's interesting because I think the airport dynamics are very different when you go from, so for example, from the U.S. airport. So I go through SFO, the San Francisco airport. Do you usually go to SFO or do you go to Oakland?
No, the one in San Francisco.
Yeah. And I've heard that the Oakland one's nicer because there's like less people that usually take that one.
Really?
Yeah, that's what I've heard. That's what I've heard from people. That people don't like going to SFO because everyone goes to SFO, but
Why do we go to SFO only?
right? I don't know. I just because it's the only one I really know and use.
Yeah.
But anyway, so when I was at SFO, it was pretty smooth. Going through security. It's also nice to have comfortable, like you were saying, comfortable clothes because you have to remove like your shoes and stuff when you go through security as well.
Yeah, your jewelry, your belt,
jewelry, exactly, your belt.
shoes, your jacket, everything.
And then like your carry-on. So if you have like a carry-on luggage or a backpack, they have to check all that too. So make sure that whatever you put in your backpack, you don't have anything like with too much liquid or anything sharp, anything like that. You say you like taking a book. I took my Nintendo Switch over, and honestly, I barely used it. I don't know why I took it. I didn't even use it in the plane either. I was just on my phone most of the time. And also I forgot to bring my charger, so the Switch just didn't have any battery like halfway through the trip. So I was like, okay, well, so there was that. And also, oh my God, like also make sure to like bring like at least a charger for your phone and stuff. Don't forget that, because then it gets really hard to find like a charger. I don't know. For me, it's good to just have your one form of communication well charged or like well prepared, because you don't want to, you want to have someone to contact in case something goes wrong, which luckily nothing went wrong with mine. I ate something at the airport too, but airport food can be pretty expensive.
Oh,
so I don't recommend doing that either. I recommend just eating something before and then going to the airport.
You know something? Growing up, because you're not allowed to bring liquids in.
Right.
But I always thought that meant that you couldn't bring food in.
You can bring food.
But
yeah.
I then learned that you can bring food in. And so now I try to carry my own things because, like you said, something very out on the outside that is not so expensive. It's so expensive in the airport.
Yeah. And that's smart. Yeah. And I also realized that because when I went, so when I got on the plane, I was like, I saw these people, like this older couple, they brought sandwiches. And I was like, oh, they like packed their own sandwiches. Then I guess that means that you can just bring in food. And they just ate some sandwiches and everything. Yeah.
I was so shocked by that. Which then I thought, of course you can, because when you were in the... Oh, no, but you can also have... Okay. The reason I was bringing it up is because Pollo Campero is very popular where I come from, from home. And so I always see people, and like when I go to Guatemala only and I come from Guatemala, coming from there to here, the smell of Pollo Campero in the plane is really strong because a lot of people take it back home.
I see.
But but I always thought that it was just in the airport. But then I saw people also like buying outside and bring it in. But
I see.
You can bring food in except liquids. Which, is there a reason why liquid is not allowed?
Probably because people can sneak in like alcohol and stuff.
But they sell alcohol in the airport.
Oh yeah, you're right.
That's
I don't know.
Really good
I don't know.
question.
Maybe there's flammables too. They don't know if it's like something that can be maybe like flammable while it's in the plane. I don't know. There's a lot of weird. I don't understand all the TSA regulations, but I mean it's good that we have them, because we don't want to be in any trouble while in a plane. But anyways, you figured something out here?
I'm like really okay. So, it says that the 311 liquid rules at the airports was introduced in 2006 to prevent liquid explosives.
So flammables.
From being carried onto planes after a foiled terrorist plot in which chemicals concealed in drinking bottles would have been used to double multiply transatlantic flights. Whether this is true or not true, but I can understand the chemical.
What's going on? Yeah. No, that makes sense.
You can't do that with food.
Yeah. Well, I mean, food's like mostly solid though.
Yeah.
Unless you bring like a soup, then you probably can't bring a soup.
No.
Yeah, probably you won't get away with a soup. Also, who would want to eat a soup in the plane? There's so much shaking. But anyways, we'll continue talking about our airplane and airport experiences. But right now, we're going to go ahead and take a short musical break. And we're going to be playing Sole Purpose by Ismael Lara. And we'll be right back.
Yeah. Evolving Wings. Yeah. I'm a genius, original purpose, resurrect like the phoenix. From the mother lotus emerges, no longer feel wordless. To be a service to purpose, it's evolving wings por vida. Got them all like Nita, internal bleeding the brain got me insane. Explain the pain, your seat's pain. My soul wounded, some wounds can't be computed. God's great shadows meet the darkest alley. Demons came for me, but archangels parried. Swift swings shut the soulless rapidly. Call it horror meets fantasy. Lower energies move like cavities. Sucker MCs, no substance. Ignore the earth's cry. Sucker MCs, no substance. Don't realize we never die. Misguided by subsidized lies. I'm guided by my ancestors' war cries. Borga floor spitting truth, encouraging your spine. Evolving wings is manifesting your divine. Don't give up, fly. Compassionate campaign, my sole purpose. Wings up, wings up, wings up, wings up. Compassionate campaign, my sole purpose. Wings up, wings up, wings up, wings up. Compassionate campaign, my sole purpose. Wings up, wings up, wings up. Compassionate campaign, my sole purpose. Wings up, wings up. Fui bendecido por los grandes que.
All right, and welcome back. So I just wanted to give out some quick announcement here that open mic night is back. Thank you to everyone who came by last month. Our next open mic will be on February 23rd, which is a Friday, and doors will be open from 6 to 8 p.m., and it'll be here at the Multicultural Center of Marin. We hope to see you guys there. Well, that's the only announcement we got for now, but still continuing here, because I am interested in this. So when you're at the airport, yes, food, not making sure to have any of the liquids. So I had a pretty crazy experience. I think so on my way back from Mexico. Basically my flight it was weird. So let me start here. So as soon as I got on the plane, everything went well when I came from San Francisco all the way to Mexico. Like when I took that plane, it was fine. Like there was some turbulence. I don't know if does turbulence disturb you? Honestly, to me, it feels like it's just like suspension in a car. Right? Like it's like things are just kind of going up. Well, it could be, it can kind of vary, but.
No, well, there was one time where it was my trip to Hawaii, where we had two experiences. It's absolutely, I felt it before. It doesn't feel that crazy. But when we were going to Hawaii, there was a period where the shaking was a little bit not the same that I was worried about. Like it felt a little bit different, and I did get freaked out.
It felt more intense.
Yeah, it felt more intense. But when it's just like a normal flight, and the thing is, the weather's cool and everything, it just feels nothing crazy.
Right.
Yeah, you just feel it move.
And for me, like I was pretty comfortable the whole time in the airport. Your plane, or have you been on planes? Because I know not all plane companies do this, but I got complimentary food for my plane trip. And obviously it's not the best food in the world, but it's food. Have you been on planes where they don't give you food and stuff like that, or do most airlines
provide you the basic of a snack?
Yeah, so
like pretzels, a cookie, that's pretty much it. And then they offer you a complimentary, but I feel like you've already paid for it, drinks, so sodas, teas, coffees. But they also have like bigger meals within their menu, which you would have to purchase outside of what you've already paid for. So that's the only thing.
Have you rode in first class?
I have, actually.
Whoa, look at you.
Yeah, I have. But it was very I don't remember how, but it was not planned. we didn't buy first
Class
class
tickets.
tickets. It was they just had moved us to be in the first class.
Oh, interesting.
And we did not know, and I understood the
That's because they
difference.
knew you were Santi Hernandez from
Yes,
Tay Radio
yes,
Marin.
That's why, exactly. They knew the importance. Yeah, but my it was with my dad. And my we went to Guatemala. We were going to
Yeah.
Guatemala, and we sat at the very front, and we're like, wait, are we in the right place? And
Yeah, you guys were a little questionable
yeah,
about
yeah.
what.
But then we did see the difference because in the back they'll give you a cookie, pretzels, and something to drink that you
Right.
want. But in the first class, like they served our sparkling water in like wine glass, and like the meals that they gave us was served in a plate, and it had knives, it had bread with butter.
Really? Whoa,
It
what
was
the?
really different.
Wow.
And it was like constantly, is there anything I can get you? It was more like service, I would
Yeah.
say. It was a beautiful experience. Absolutely. I just don't know.
If it's worth the price.
I mean, come on, being treated that does feel nice. But again, I just feel like I'm just sitting there. I might as well be sleeping. You know?
Yeah. And here's another question for you: Is do you usually like taking the row seats or the seat at the end?
When I was smaller, I used to like the window.
The window seat.
Because I wanted to see outside and stuff. But and then I'm still smaller now, but I was much smaller. So if I need to go to the restroom, I can. get
That's
up
the
and stuff.
big thing there.
But now that I'm older, and I really don't like when I have to say, "Excuse me, can I go and go to the bathroom?" And sometimes people are sleeping, so I feel really bad waking them up. So I sometimes hold it, but then it's not good to hold it. So when I'm traveling at night, it's like I don't care where I sit, just not in the middle.
Right.
If I'm in the window, great. If I'm in the edge, great. But don't put me in the middle. I don't like the middle. But for now, I usually pick like
Row seat.
the row seat.
Yeah, and that's definitely the way to do it. I would say because so it's interesting. I picked because I wanted to test this theory out. So on my way from SFO to Mexico, I took the window seat. And then I was like, then that's where I realized the problem. Well, if I have to go to the bathroom, I have to go through all these people, and if these people are sleeping, it's even
have to go,
tougher.
yeah.
Yeah, it's even tougher to do it. So, but then I took the row seat coming back, and it was a much like easier experience for me. Like I just it was fine. You know, I didn't really mind being on the row seat. You get out quicker too from the plane. Yeah, you don't have to wait for as much people. And it was good. And overall, like my experience using the bathrooms in the plane, it's fine. You know, that was definitely like, again, a thing I hadn't experienced in a really long time. But yeah. But anyways, going back to that story that I was telling at the beginning here.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. So what happened was, so on my way back to the U.S. when I was in the Mexican airport, there was a delay on my flight, and I was like, oh, okay, interesting. So it was like a 30-minute delay. So I was like, okay, it's not that bad. So then once the plane arrived, we got on, we were all ready to sit. We were sitting there for like 10 minutes. And then they tell us, oh, everyone has to leave now. And we're like, what? Well, we already sat down and we already put our stuff in. And they're like, oh yeah, like we put you on the wrong plane or something like that. And we're like, what the heck? What do you mean you put, like, how does that even happen? How do you even put people in the wrong plane? So then we all got out.
Really?
Yeah, we all got out.
That was-
And then we had to wait for like another half an hour for the other plane to arrive.
Oh.
And then when we got on the other plane, what they told us was that actually they had found something faulty in the other plane. A mechanical failure in the plane. And that's why they didn't want to say that, so we weren't all freaking out or anything. And we were just like, oh, well, good thing I guess we got out of that plane, because that's scary.
Yeah,
So
there was also a recent incident that happened in an airline that went around, and it's like a whole piece of the plane came off recently.
as it was lifting off, or as it was coming.
It was in the air. They had to do an emergency landing.
Oh,
Yeah, it just happened recently.
wow.
It was really big on TikTok.
Here in America,
Yeah.
or was it in Japan? I heard something about that happened in Japan or
I
something.
feel like, why do I feel like Kim would know something like this?
Is it Japan? Is it America? Oh, it's here.
It's here?
Yeah, it's here. Yeah, it's here. Okay, yeah.
Kim would know.
Yeah, shout out to Kim in the back
Yeah.
for letting us know.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it's like the probability is very
Low. It's low of that stuff happening, but you should
still.
it does get your anxiety a little up, and I won't lie, I do feel kind of anxious when I got on those planes for the first, like, especially after they told us like, oh, the other one had a mechanical failure. I was like, oh, well.
You know what I have a hard time, and it might be the opposite actually. It's when I go into planes and there's like one row, like, you know, the one row meaning they has two seating, so one row, like four, but in total it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 total rows, and it's really big, and some of them have like even more people, and I don't know why that freaks me out. That I feel like because we're so much, it's so heavy, it's gonna fall.
No, it's all gonna fall. Yeah, no, but planes are heavy.
But that's what's in my head all the time. But yeah, it can be. I try not to think about it. For in our case too, in Hawaii, we had a very horrible landing. Like it was
really,
yeah. Hawaii was such a beautiful place, but going there, I remember my brother's girlfriend. She was like, that landing though, because it was
like it was a rough landing.
It was a rough landing.
Like what made it rough? Like what?
It like we landed, but it was like, and then it bounced back up.
Oh god.
Yeah. And it wasn't. There's like landing where it's smooth, where you sometimes you don't even feel it when
you just hear the road. You just hear the road, and that's kind of it.
But that one you felt everything from going down, and the coming down wasn't very smooth. It was like, and then it wasn't my best experience, but it did remind me like, hey, anything like this can happen and stuff. But
the other thing about plane travel that I don't really enjoy is like when your ears get all sore.
Yes, the altitude.
The altitude and everything, and my ears hurt so much. Like when I was coming back and we were kind of changing latitudes and everything, like I couldn't hear anything.
Oh yeah.
I could not hear a thing.
Yeah.
And I was starting to freak out. I was like, oh my god, am I losing like my hearing like loss? But I was like, no, it's just because of the latitude of the plane. Yeah, that throws me off really bad.
This reminded me, because we're talking about planes, about this Netflix film that just came out. Did you hear about it? It's an actual
true story.
True story, yeah. The Secret Society of Snow. Is that the name? Oh, Kim, does Kim know about this?
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really interesting film. It's about a true story. I won't get into details because I don't think we can talk about it here. But it's a true story of a plane crash that happened from Chile, if I'm correct.
Oh.
And the people were stranded in the middle of nowhere in the snow. Mm-hmm. And they had to find ways to survive in the snow. And they did survive, but the measures they went to survive is pretty crazy.
Okay, yeah. I can imagine what measures they took.
Yeah, so that's why I said we'll mention it in the show. But they reminded me about that, like stuff that can happen. But you guys, it's the low it's a very, very low, especially now technology has reached to a very, very more safety measures that are out there.
Yeah, putting your phone on like airplane mode. I never understood that, to be honest. Like why do you put your phone on airplane mode or your devices on airplane mode? Because the plane, I always thought that it's like, because you can't have Wi-Fi, but planes have Wi-Fi in them.
That's what I thought too.
Yeah. But for me, I mean, usually for the plane I went on.
Oh, well.
Oh, you found the answer here.
It says here that it signals the signals of cellular phones can interfere with critical aircraft instruments. Yeah, I'm guessing like
like the frequencies that they operate or to communicate and all that, it can affect all that. That makes sense.
I always said the same thing about Wi-Fi. Like, but then now they offer. Okay, here's the big change that I noticed, because I've been traveling since in my teens when I finally got my legal status here, and when we were. Back then, when we were kids, like my favorite thing was on the airport was we're gonna get to watch a movie in the air. Like that to me was crazy. But now a lot of airplanes don't have the little screen that you will see. Yeah, they'll actually offer you to bring your own device to use to watch your movies. Yeah. So like if you have my computer, I can connect it to the to their network. Yeah. I can watch
off of your computer
and even on the phone. But back then it wasn't like that. So those are little changes that are happening, which is why I said time has evolved a lot of things in safety measures and even entertainment measures. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I remember on my way to Mexico, the movie that I watched, because I did watch a couple movies. I watched Back to the Future. And that was a really fun movie. I recommend if you're traveling, like when you're in the last few hours.
Never watched it.
When you gotta watch Back to the Future, but when you're in the last few hours of your flight, pop in Back to the Future because I feel like everything like the movie just correlates really well when you're on your way to this. I don't know. I really liked it. It was a cool experience.
Okay.
It was a cool experience. I'll tell you that.
Okay. I was gonna mention since we were talking about now the airplanes and stuff. One of the biggest tips that I've learned now that I'm, turning into an adult, and it's that for me, I have my credit card, but the way I purchase my plane tickets when I go on vacation is based on my credit card that I have, whether it gives me cash back or if my specific card has deals for buying airplane tickets. But for most recently of my trips, I have a credit card that gives me cash back. So I technically don't use my money to buy tickets. I use that money to buy tickets.
Interesting.
So for me, and I've been sharing this to everyone, is if you know how to use a credit card, and we had multiple shows on Tay to learn about finances, go watch those, because then you can find ways like this where I'm like, my ticket is covered. Like my ticket from Hawaii was covered by my credit card. So it wasn't money that I necessarily took away from my account.
Yeah.
So
that's true. A lot of credit cards have a lot of deals on travel, especially.
So get a credit card if you know how to use it to your advantage. That's the biggest thing. Another tip that I have is, now that I'm older, I have that option and I've been using it. So it's really, I get pretty good deals on that.
Yeah. And then so moving away now from airports and airplanes and kind of talking back about, I kind of just wanted to spend these last half of the show here talking about kind of like how it feels to be in a different space, in a different part of the world, right? So for me, when I went to Mexico, I was in Mexico City, is really, really the interesting thing about Mexico City is that it's so Americanized now. Like there's like a lot of just
In Mexico?
In Mexico City.
Oh, okay.
In Mexico City. There's a lot of parts that are just very Americanized because they know they get a lot of tourism there. And it was just so surprising to me that, there would be cafes there and you would just hear people speaking English. And I was just like so thrown off by that. I was like, wow, I came to Mexico to escape English. But now I'm over here hearing people speak English. It's like, it's crazy. And a lot of the waiters there too, they speak English as well, speak English and Spanish. And that to me was just so like mind blowing. Like I was just like, I wasn't expecting it to be like that, but apparently that's been a recent change ever since COVID. Because what COVID did was it gave a lot of Americans, remote jobs. And since the rent was going so high in America, a lot of them just moved out of America and moved to Mexico City because the rent is so much cheaper.
Really?
And since most of their work is online, they don't have to necessarily be in America to do it. So they're living the life over there. They got their remote job that's paying them well, getting a U.S. salary that exchanges well into Mexican pesos, and they just live the dream over there. And I saw a lot of people like that. That's apparently what they do. They just get remote jobs, and I'm like, and to me, like, yeah, like it is a good option. Like if I was in their position, if I was able to do that, I'd like to do that but I'm looking at it from more because I have family there, and it'd be nice to be closer to family. But for these other people that that are these Americans that are trying to, because again, rent is really high here in America. It really is, especially in California.
The Marin.
Yeah. So if they get to pay like $500 to $600 for a 2-bedroom apartment in a really nice part of Mexico City, of course they're gonna travel out over there and get that. You know what I mean? So I don't blame them, but I'm also not a fan because to me, I also when I'm over there, I want to be surrounded by purely Spanish speaking people or surrounded. So that's why luckily I have my cousins there to guide me to the less touristy, less trendy areas and really get to like see a lot of the inner parts and outer parts of the city. And yeah, so that was kind of like one of my first observations when I got there that I thought was interesting.
Reminds me a little bit of Antigua for us.
Yeah.
Antigua, Guatemala is a lot where a lot of retired people go to. It's such a beautiful, beautiful architectural place. And even Pana, which is Panajachel, where the Lake Atitlan is, also very, very popular with a lot more retired people who decide to live on there and a lot of
What do you mean by retired people? Like retired Americans or retired Guatemalans or
Americans, Europeans.
Oh, retired European,
I went to a very famous place and it's Chimuk Champay. And if anyone goes to Guate, definitely go visit that place. It's beautiful. There's natural pools there. But a lot of the hostels that are owned there are owned by European people, which is great. I think what I have a hard time with is how other people are benefiting from the land that belongs to a lot of my community.
Right.
But again, it just depends. I see that, but and I also see that these people came to invest and are actually providing jobs for these people and helping them get a living out of a job. So there's definitely multiple things that I see. There's like pros and cons for each,
Yeah, exactly.
But for me, one of the biggest things when it comes to traveling that I've learned is the culture. I have my own specific culture coming from Guatemala and coming here as well. But going to different places, I've learned to really say, hey, I have my culture, but I want to respect other people. It might look weird to me, but it's not. Who am I to say that?
Who are you to judge?
Yeah. So for me, it's like I take what I can apply to my life that can help me improve to be a better person. And I leave what is not something that I don't want to, but I don't go and say this and that, and definitely valuing people's culture and learning from it. Trust me, I've learned going to Mexico. I learned so many things. Going to Hawaii, I learned so many things. And I'm going back home, and I've been very grateful that I've had the opportunity to travel to different places. So there's different cultures that I've seen, and I can get a better I'm blanking on the name. Is it sympathy or empathy for people that I can understand in a deeper level than I would if I didn't go to the places to.
No, that totally makes sense. I definitely felt like that when I went to Mexico. When I went to the more pueblitos, like the more smaller towns there, I felt that's what I enjoyed the most. Because that's what I'm seeking when I go over there. Like I told my cousins, I don't want to see all the touristy areas, like all these Americanized areas, because I'm trying to escape American culture. I'm trying to see real Mexican culture, right? Mm-hmm. So going to the small towns and then learning about all this different again, because each small town there has its own culture, right? So when I was able to go there, go visit all these small towns, eat their food, find like different exotic types of food that I wouldn't find here, that to me was the experience that really helped me and really helped me just be grateful for how the opportunities and the risks that my parents took to come to this country.
Absolutely.
And start to understand, okay, now I understand why certain things I should be grateful for, right?
Yeah, and I want to piggyback on that. And when I travel, I'm always reminded about how blessed I am. Often when we're here, it's in America, especially the culture is very go, very fast paced. It's work, home, or work, school, home, work, school, all of that little cycle that we're always on. And we can forget about the tiny things. And I bring it up often on the show because it's something that we forget to be grateful about the meal, about the, having a place to sleep. But going back home for me, and then even in other places too, but going back home for me in Guatemala, the biggest thing that it's like be grateful. It reminds me is when I see young kids working, like in Guatemala, you see like 5-year-olds working already in the fields, or they're making a living off things, and that a kid shouldn't have to worry about that. They shouldn't.
Or young mothers.
Yeah, young mothers or parents. And so it reminds me always of how grateful I need to be.
Yeah, absolutely. That's
and
so
we
true.
forget it often because we're such in a go environment. So going on, I don't like to use the word vacation very much because when I travel, I don't feel like I'm going to a resort often. And
You're traveling with a purpose.
yes, and I love to go to different to the locals and learn about their story.
Yeah, me too. That's exactly what I love doing.
My biggest tip is if it's safe and you know it, you always got to keep your safety in mind, of course, but talking to someone and listening to their story is absolutely the best thing for me. I've had conversations in Mexico when we went to Tulum. Tulum is a very upcoming popular location, and I was really sad about it for one thing. When we got there were so many buildings being constructed there, but they're investors who are coming outside of Mexico
To come and invest in that land. Yeah.
That broke my heart because I'm big on making an environment, come alive, but not destroying the
existing environment. Yeah, I hear you.
So we went there and we were looking at what's the hype, and everybody went on the strip of Tulum where all the hotels are and stuff. We actually stayed away from that because I met someone there and they were kind of our host, and I asked them, hey, look, I want to go, and tell me where I should go to these places. And he sent me to a family-owned company who provide tours for cenotes. And there was other cenotes too, but they're more bigger.
Yeah.
I went there and I learned their story. They had a cause, and their cause was like, I grew up in these cenotes myself. My kids are growing up in those cenotes. I want to be able to provide people the experience I had while I'm taking care of my home.
Right.
Breaks the story, right? And so we were with them, and then they made us connections, and they made us cooked meal. Like they made it. It wasn't at a restaurant. That for me was the best experience we had in Mexico. Learning about the cenotes, why they're important, what's valuable. For me, that is the greatest thing that I can do when I'm traveling. Learning from the locals, learning from their stories.
And it's so humbling, it really is. It's super humbling. And most locals, like you said, as long as you know, well, one thing that really helps is just knowing the language that they speak, right? And also just being respectful and being aware that, hey, okay, you're here. You're not disrespecting. Just making sure you're not disrespecting their culture, not questioning too much of, because they have it's a whole different. That's the thing about not even just Mexico and Guatemala, just Latin America, anywhere in the world. That's so. To me, it's still like wow when I really think about it. Is that there's so many parts of the world that we just are not familiar with, or we just not talked about at all. But there's so much going on, and even in a small little town somewhere in the world, there's a whole different culture. There's a whole different. It's a world within a world.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm trying to say. Is that there's like different worlds in this world.
Yeah. And I was just this Wednesday, someone told me something that I really, really liked. And he was talking about how in Latin America, there's Mexico, Guatemala, Argentina, all of these places, and how sometimes we're Latinos, we're proud to be Latinos, but sometimes we can be against each other. Oh, yeah. Like other Guatemalans.
Yeah.
But he was saying, like, I found it so interesting because he said, it's so funny how sometimes we judge how the other person looks or talks or stuff. But he's like, but if you look at Mexico, he's from Mexico. He's like, there's an invisible line that breaks it, like makes Mexico. But within Mexico, there are these invisible lines that people don't also consider it to be the same. Meaning, there's Yucatan. There's the capital.
There's La Puebla. There's northern. So there's That's what he's saying is very true.
Different.
Yeah, northern Mexico is very different from southern Mexico.
Yeah, and within those, there's different cultures, languages.
Yes,
and so that's why he said he was like, so what's the point?
What's the judging here?
Yeah, you're judging another country, but within your country, there's not just one, there's multiple. And I found that so interesting because it's so true. In Guatemala,
and it's unfortunate. Yeah.
In Guatemala, there's people that are very short. There's people that look very white. There's people that have very like green, blue eyes. They're Guatemalans. And then there's more Guatemalans who look more indigenous. But we're all the same. where Guatemala is. And even the line that makes Guatemala, it's a made up line. The land is connected.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting.
No, it's a good point because, I for one love learning about the different cultures that are within Mexico. I went to the Anthropology Museum actually, over in Mexico, and it basically like gives the history of all the different parts of Mexico, how they came up, how all the different Aztec, Mayan empires that were there, because it's just so interesting to me. And everyone has their own accent too. Like everyone from Mexico, like every state of Mexico has its own accent.
Oh yeah,
the way they speak.
that.
Yeah, the way they speak Spanish.
Never really understood that, but then I have a friend who, her family's from Yucatan, and they
speak. Oh, I love the way Yucatecos speak
they have
Spanish.
A different way. Of
they have
speaking.
such a.
At one point, I felt like I was talking like them because I was like, "You guys speak so nice."
Yeah, they speak awesome. Yeah, I love the way Yucatecos speak Spanish.
And you can pinpoint where they're from. Like for me in Guatemala, when someone talks a little bit different, I can tell if they're from the city. They have a very unique accent.
Well, it's the same thing for Mexico City too. If you're from the
Yeah.
city, you have your own accent.
Yeah.
The Chilango accent. But yeah, in northern Mexico, it's also very different too. They have more of a kind of like what I've heard it described. So I have one cousin who actually grew up in northern Mexico. And he actually came by to visit he hadn't come and visit the family in Mexico City for a really long time. So I was kind of there around the same time that he was visiting, which is really cool. And I got to talk to him, and I talked to him, and he had a very different way of talking Spanish from all of us, which is really interesting.
Yeah, how people ask you if you could have one superpower, what would it be? Mine has always, one of my top one has been to understand every language. Because there's just such a beauty into their, like, culture is also language. So French, German, Portuguese. I've always wanted, if I could have a power, it would be that, to communicate with people and understand them, because there's just so many languages and they're all just very unique.
Yeah, and it, again, like, just going back to kind of everything we've been saying, it's good to travel. Like, traveling is just in general such a great thing to do. And if you have never traveled in your life, definitely research like a place that seems interesting to you. Like if there's like even like Japan, right? A lot of people are into, like anime or video games, or even the food in Japan. Like if the food in a certain country, any of that stuff, like if any of that stuff interests you, you should make the effort to try and check it out, like see where it's from, because then you'll really get a whole different perspective if you go and travel and actually see these things in a different light, right?
Yeah, and as I mentioned earlier, that I have traveled outside of the country after I got my legal status here, but I know the community in Marin is also people who don't have that privilege.
Yeah.
Or
Oh, absolutely. I understand that too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And also sometimes there's no money to do that. Mm-hmm. And so when my family and I didn't have that choice, there is something that I do want to share with you guys. And it's that we didn't have to travel far to get that experience. We learned Lake Tahoe. We learned about Mount Tam. We learned about, China Camp, all of these places. It's crazy to me when I talk to people in the community and they're like, I've never left Canal or I've never left SR. I just know my place to working back and forth.
I never left California.
Yeah.
Like you can go visit a different state.
Yeah. So my biggest thing is you don't have to go to these crazy big places to go explore. I mean, I work really hard to give myself these experiences along with my family. But even back then, we used to just go on hikes. We used to go on the beaches. Like there's so many national parks here that you can take advantage of. Yeah. And I do want to emphasize, I don't have the actual information on this, but if I'm correct, you can go to your library and ask them about free passes for national parks, and they offer some. They do offer
great resource there. Yeah.
So go to the library and ask for those places, because I know we were mentioning a lot about traveling a little bit more, people who can travel in the plane and have a little bit more of a budget. But for those who don't, taking a bike ride. I know a lot of Marin locations here, like Point Reyes. It was because my family couldn't afford sometimes to take us on big trips with my my brother and I, but they never used it as an excuse not to explore. It was like, let's go here, let's go here.
Absolutely.
And eating food. And it wasn't expensive food. Like even going down to San Francisco on the pier. Those are places that don't require so much money, but you can still get an experience out of it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing, Santi. We're unfortunately out of time.
Oh, no.
But thank you all for watching and hearing us. And we'll see you all next week. And take care and safe travels.